Welcome to Kings Peak. I am your teacher for lit and film, Mr. C. Derek Varn. You can call me Mr. Varn or Mr. Derek. Don't call me Mr. Christopher. I don't really like the name, but it is my legal name. We are in film, so let's get to it. All right, so objectives today is who I am, what is my philosophy of education, and what is philosophy of this class. Welcome to Kings Peak. Purpose of a writer is to keep civilization from destroying itself. Albert Camus, or Albert Camus, if you don't know how to pronounce French. I don't know that I agree with this quote, but it's kind of a lofty ambition. And so we're pro lofty ambitions here. This is King Peaks Language Arts. Hi, I'm Mr. Varn. That's me. Long, early hair and everything. I've taught English as well as social studies, composition, humanities, ethics, film, and creative writing for 17 years. I'm originally from Georgia, and I've taught in public schools as well as community college. However, I've been a professor at a university in Korea, that is Hanguk Daehakyo, which is Korean University of Foreign Studies or Korean Foreign Language University. You can translate that probably either way. I taught at IB and AP programs. IB is International Baccalaureate. AP is Advanced Placement programs in Korea, Mexico, and Egypt. In addition to teaching here in Utah for the last 7 years, the last five in Jordan District. So 7 in Utah. Let me get that in the camera there. 5 in Jordan District. I haven't updated that yet. I'm a published author and have worked in publishing as a second job for 18 years as well, both as a poet and as an editor. I've worked for 2 different book publishers and several literary magazines as a side gig for a while. And I've also published, journalism and all kinds of stuff. All right, places I have traveled and taught. Now, I'm only showing you places I have both lived and taught, not places I've visited. I've visited something like, there's a map in the back there that actually goes to the countries I've visited, and it's something like 25 or so. I've been on 5 out of 7 continents. Haven't been to Oceania/Australia, which is kind of one place. And I haven't been to the Antarctic. But South America, North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, South America, North America, Europe, Asia, Africa. Yeah, 5. So been there. I lived and taught in Korea for a little over 3.5 years. That's a picture from a temple that used to be up the street. It's a Buddhist temple. It was in Jeonju, in the South Korean countryside. And if you notice a swastika up there, that is not a fascist symbol. If it's going that direction, it's a Buddhist symbol. The Nazis stole it and flipped it, and that's a whole long discussion about what they meant by it, and it's beyond the purview of this class. This is not a history class, but it's just something to note. I used to teach there, not at that temple, but in that area. I also used to teach in Egypt. That's my picture of the Great Pyramids, and they were kind of 20 minutes drive away from me when I lived in Maadi, Egypt. And then I taught in Mexico for a while. Mi español es poquito, pero entiendo más o menos. Mi español es muy gringo. En serio, that's the way. And I taught in Torreon, Mexico, in the state of Coahuila. But that picture is from me visiting Querétaro, which is in central Mexico, and a place that I really find lovely. Other things about me that you might want to know. As a teacher, I like you to understand, excuse me, I can't read today. See, that's the problem. We'll get to that in a minute. That I will probably have empathy with your struggles. 1, I am dyslexic and aphasic. Dyslexia affects reading, aphasia affects writing and speaking. Not so much speaking for me, but writing I do actually have some issues with, even though I'm a professional writer. This didn't stop me from getting a master's degree in writing, from teaching university, or from traveling around the world, but I did need a lot of help to do that, and I want to provide that help to you if you want it. I'm an avid reader as well. I read about 50 to 80 books a year. The average person reads 1. But it was not easy for me to develop that skill. I developed it in college. Despite having taught for a long time, I had a career before being a teacher or a professor. I didn't start teaching until I was 27 years old. I want you to know that I realize that most of you aren't going to be English majors, and your love of literature, if you have it, and film, if you have it, needs to be mixed with your practical realities, and I know that. I know most of you aren't going to be English majors. It's okay. Shout out for the old people like myself who graduated high school without Google. Yes, I predate Google. All right. And that's an old meme because that's Kid President. That's from like, I don't know, a decade ago. That kid's probably 20 now. All right. My educational philosophy, or why Genghis Khan is one of my idols. This class works like an army. It must be disciplined and work as a team. As your leader, I will guide you in the battle with language. You will become better thinkers, speakers, and writers by the end of the course, but you need to follow my instructions. However, as a leader, I know you aren't robots. I know you're not just going to do everything I say. I know that. I'm not a fool. You have agency. You have to be convinced. You have to be shown. It has to be explained to you. Unless the state of Utah tells me that you have to do it, and even I don't really understand, because I said so is not a good answer, right? Like the Golden Horde, you are ultimately free, even if you have to go to school by state law. You have a choice over how you follow my instructions, and you have to best apply the lessons to the role you choose for yourself. I don't know what you want this for. I don't know what you love. I don't know what you're going to do with your life, and I'm not going to pretend to either. There's the Golden Horde. I think they're cool. Excuse me. That way. There we go. I don't know. The camera's flipped. Sorry about that. My philosophy on students are why Mr. Rogers is my other idol. So they're kind of the polar opposite. Before I was a teacher, I was a professor. But before I was a professor, my mother was a prison nurse, and I worked briefly as a corrections officer or a prison guard. In my interactions with prisoners, most of them wanted opportunities they lost, particularly to be educated. What they most wanted is respect, and I try to give that to people. Respect is something you keep by earning it, but I'm going to assume that you deserve it as a default. So, as Mr. Rogers said, we're going to meet you where you are for who you are, all right? It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. And this neighborhood is my electronic classroom. All right, so this is a film class, and I want to tell you some of my favorite directors. You can't watch all these directors, but you might know a few of them and others you've never heard of and we won't study. Stanley Kubrick, Claire Denis, French filmmaker, Taika Waititi, the director of Thor Ragnarok and Jojo Rabbit. So you probably have watched Taika Waititi. Andrei Tarkovsky, a famous Russian filmmaker. Hayao Miyazaki, you might know Studio Ghibli. I really like his work. Greta Gerwig. I mostly know her for other work, but she recently became famous for the Barbie movie. Steven Spielberg. Yeah, I like Steven Spielberg, even though it's a little bit basic these days. Akira Kurosawa, Robert Eggers, and Ingmar Bergman. So I like a lot of movies from a lot of different kinds of time periods, okay? And we're going to talk about that. I'm very knowledgeable on film, as I am on literature. And I have taught pure film courses in university before, so I can talk to you about this all day. But this is also a literature course, so my favorite authors and poets are Ezra Pound, Alice Fulton, William Faulkner, George Saunders, Philip K. Dick, Gene Wolfe, Neil Gaiman. Probably the first name you might know. Ben Ramke, Shakespeare. I know you know Shakespeare because we tortured you with him. Aesop Rock, who's not Aesop Rocky. Aesop Rock is actually a poet and rapper from the aughts. From, when I was only 20 or something before you guys were born. Octavia Butler, Vladimir Nabokov, and Richard Wright. Literature and film. We are a competency-based program, and this class is aimed at helping you transfer skills, develop your interest, and learn how to apply English and cinema literacy. All right, so we have an additional thing here, cinema literacy, to areas of your life you don't often think about applying it. Yes, we're going to learn Shakespeare and various film adaptations of Shakespeare. Yes, you're going to read long works, a novel or play of your choosing, but you're going to learn about the history of film, skills around adaptation, and how to compare works adapted for different mediums. Additional guiding principles. I will help you. I will guide you. I will accommodate for you, but I will not give you all the answers. Often there are many, many right answers, and sometimes your logic is more important than your answer. You will need to be vulnerable and ask questions. I have heard all the time, you don't teach us to do taxes, change oil, or get a job. Well, no, I don't. This is true. But I do teach you the skills you need to learn these things, because if I taught you tax law, it would change in a year. If I teach you how to change an oil in a Chevy or a Ford or an F-150, I don't know. It's not going to help you fix your EV, your Tesla, or your Rivian. And it's not going to be the same way you change oil in a Hyundai or a Kia. Now, I happen to know how to change oil, believe it or not. I was taught by my dad, who was a mechanic. But I also know I can't do it in a Hyundai because you have to take the whole engine out. All right. And get a job. Well, I've had many different kinds of jobs. We talked about that. I've been a pizza cook and a pizza store manager. I was briefly a prison guard, like I mentioned. I have been a professor off and on for many years. I've been a high school teacher for longer than most of you have been alive. And I've done a few other jobs too. Like I said, I've worked in publishing. I have done editorial work. I have been a loading docks worker at a truck yard. I've done all kinds of stuff. All right. So I have an idea of what kind of skills you might actually need, but they're always changing, and I can't predict it all. The job market is dramatically different than when I was your age. We barely had the internet. I mean, the internet has existed in some form since the 70s, the 1970s, and the internet, as we know it, really began in the 1990s when I was in high school. But we didn't have all that stuff before that. All right. So where schools tend to fail you is that they don't tend to tie all this together for you. All right. And they don't make it relevant to you. They don't teach you that the skills you're learning actually have practical applications. Famous example, and one that plagued me in my childhood, was the Pythagorean theorem. You can do so much with the Pythagorean theorem, but when I was in high school, I had no idea what you could do with it other than get a good grade on a math test that I didn't want to take. Now, you can use it to design an arch and put the lodestone in an arch. You can use it to figure out the proper statistical distribution of a class. I do it all the time. You can use it to figure out a price point of the ideal profit to price ratio to make the most money in a competitive market. You can use it for a ton of things, but I wasn't taught that. I had to figure that out on my own. All right. So it is my duty to make things relevant to you so you don't have the Pythagorean theorem problem where you know something useful, but you don't know that it's useful. But you have to ask questions so I can communicate what is relevant to you. All right? Because, many of the things I said about the Pythagorean theorem, I use some of those. I've never had to build an arch. I know you can build an arch with it, but it's not something I do. All right? Similar to you, okay? So you got to ask, and I can help you. All right, virtues. Now, over there, that picture, that's a lot of different virtue theorists. That's Confucius, John Locke, famous African virtue theorist, Hannah Arendt, Aristotle, some German guy who I forgot who he is. These are all various theorists of virtue. Now, virtue is related to morality, but it's really about your strength. Literally, virtue, strength. It's related in Latin to the word vitae, which is blood, like literally your vitality, your life. This is where virtue comes from. So there are 5 virtues I think are important for education. Now, these are not the most important things for life, although at least 2 of them I think are, but I think these are what you need to get well educated, and these are traits you should cultivate in yourself. And you're not going to be good at all of them equally, okay? It's just the way it is. Grit is your determination, your firmness of mind. If you say you're going to finish it, you're going to finish it, darn it. Curiosity, your interest in the world. What do you find fascinating? Self-sufficiency. You can regulate yourself. You're not dependent on others to control you. Creativity. You are flexible in your thinking and create new things by combining things that you see. And honesty. Your commitment to the truth, not just to not lying, but actually uncovering the truth and living an honest life. But those aren't the only kind of virtues. There are moral virtues. There's patience. There's charity. There's temperance, moderation, bravery. These are all virtues. All right. What are yours? All right. I've told you what I think is important for learning. I would say grit and honesty are important in all areas of life, and probably curiosity too, and self-sufficiency. And it doesn't hurt to be creative, but I would say grit and honesty are the two most important ones. Can you finish your work, and can you really strive to know and embody and be truthful? But what are yours? I'm not here to teach you morality. The state of Utah has not empowered me to do that. That is really up to your family and your friends, mostly your family and then your friends. So what are your virtues? All right, this is some philosophy of education stuff. This is a framework on competence. We start off unconsciously incompetent. Unconscious means you're not aware. Incompetent means unskillful. And it feels good because you don't know what you don't know. But then you become consciously incompetent, which means you know what you don't know. And that is not fun. It is unfun. All right. But that is how you learn, and you get better, and then you become consciously competent. Means when you think about it, you can do it right. But if you've ever played a video game or mastered, say, baseball or football, you know the best competence is when you no longer have to think about it, when it's muscle memory. That is unconscious competence, and that is when you are achieving mastery. And it takes a long time to do, but we want to get you on that road. And here's the learning pit. The learning pit is something that I deal with too. First, you have to accept the challenge of learning. I can't make you accept it. You know that saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink? Well, the reason why you can't make them drink is if you force that horse's head in the water, they're going to drown. So you defeated the purpose. Now you have a dead horse. It's just mean. Why do you have to kill an innocent but stubborn horse? No, you let the horse make the decision for itself. And I let you make the decision for yourself. I want you all to learn. I'm not going to leave any of you behind if I can get away with it, but I can't make you. All right. Now, when you first learn something truly new, not something you've practiced in the past, it often is harder than you think because you don't know what you don't know. Remember, see the last slide. And you can fall into the pit of learning or despair. Sorry, that was dramatic. But it's easy to get out of, and I'll throw you a rope. As a teacher, it's my job to help you learn how to climb that wall of learning, give you a rope to do it, and then empower you to do it without me because I'm not always going to be around. Right? Yeah? Yeah. All right. Well, my Lit and Film peeps, we're done. You now have an idea of me. So tell me a little bit about you. Answer the questions along with this and give me a video or some kind of PowerPoint, some kind of presentation. Prezi, I don't care, but use what you like. But make sure you answer all the questions with images and stuff that lets me get to know you. Because I might not ever see your face. You don't have to turn your Zoom camera on. So I want to know you. Teaching is partly a relationship in the sense that we relate to each other. Now, we're not peers, right? But it's a two-way street. I should teach you more than you teach me, but I do learn from you. All right. So remember that. There's a person behind the computer here. And that person wants to help you, just like if I was in person with you. All right. Take care. Have a great day.